Hello, welcome to Free Will, Science, and Religion. I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with George Ortega and David Joseph. And I think George is in a better position to explain what the topic of this episode is really about.
Okay, yeah, I think we could title this "Bringing the Free Will Issue to Politics Through Dailykos." Um, and so to explain that, so Dailykos is it's the premier progressive website. Um, 1.5 million members, 2.5 million visits a month. They get a lot of traffic. In other words, like our posting there will be far, far more effective than either our posting on Facebook or on our personal blogs or even on this podcast. This podcast is good for historical purposes, for just like having this group cohesion and stuff. It's great for a lot of things, but in terms of like getting the word out, this daily coast is like you know and our strategy. I mean, in other words, like a lot of the reasons why I think we've been limited in our reach in the past is that we haven't been able to explain the relevance of this free will issue to the world in general. And so, like, by injecting it into politics, I think we can do that. So how about if one of you guys kind of like, based on like the last few diaries that we've posted, describe what our mission is on COAS.
Yeah, well, I get your general idea, George, that if we can explain to people how this free will topic is related to politics, then people it will improve things. Unfortunately, based on the comments, it seems like they just view it as a tangential issue, like it.
No, all right, Chandler, no, do not, here's a very important point. Do not get kind of like either sidetracked or confused by those comments. Those comments represent a very, very small percentage of the people who read those diaries, you know. And in our case, those comments actually could be coming from the Republicans, because basically we're trying to like, lift pull the Republican ideology out from under them. So again, don't, they will be loud, they'll be persistent and all, and actually, you want to know something, Chandler? They are doing us a huge favor, because you got to understand how Daily Coast works. When a story gets a comment, okay, the comment count goes up. Stories that like only one or two people have commented on, most of the people who read Daily Coast, and the vast majority, you got to really understand this and appreciate it. The vast majority are people who don't comment. So they'll see a story with one or two comments, and they'll say, this can't be, interesting, whatever, because like it doesn't seem very popular, right? But so these guys come on our stories, and they accuse us of sock puppeting and this and that and all, and they think they're hurting our cause. Chandler, these guys are in a sense our best friends, because what happens when they do that, they start immediately the up count on the the comments. And so here's the thing. Let me just like and David, like after I finish with this, why don't you explain what our mission is, in your words, because like it's important for the audience to know this. But but all right, so what happens is like it's extremely important, and we got to like really understand this as the group. When we put up a new diary, um, we should have at least two or three of us available at that time to defend it, to basically like and not even to this defend it, quote unquote, per se, but to amplify the read count, the comment count. In other words, like, you have people commenting, um, and then like we comment to their comments, and they comment back and all. And so like, and I'll talk a bit later about how we want to do that, how we want to engage them to make further comments after our own and all. But all right, before we do that, David, explain to the audience what our mission is on Daily Coast, what we're trying to do.
Well, at the moment, it sounds like we're trying to create a little bit of controversy, to be honest, within the rules of posting. Is that kind of what we're trying to do?
Well, I mean, like, what? Why are we trying? It's not. I mean, no, we're not. We're not. That's not our purpose to create controversy. Of course. What is our theme? What are we trying to do with our pieces,
We,
with our
we're, tr-
stories?
we're trying to promote the idea that there is no free will, and link it to politics and environmentalism and all the other issues that are important in politics.
Exactly. More directly, for example, the Republican Party, let's say inner city kids, whether they're in London or New York or anywhere, um, their environment is just not conducive for them to like succeed. You know, very few people around them succeed. They see crime everywhere. They're very limited in their economics. They have just so many disadvantages, right? And so because of this, a lot of them get into trouble, right? Now, here's the problem with this free will belief in politics with this issue. When they're in front of a Republican judge or a Republican prosecutor, they are not going to care at all about like this person's consequences. They're just going to throw the book at them. They just don't care. And so why do they do that? They basically do that because they believe that, well, that kid, you know, should have been able to like rise above, you know, all of his disadvantages because somebody on his block was able to do that, because a few of them have been able to do that. Everybody should. I mean, can you see the cruelty, the callousness, the indifference, and you know, really the stupidity? Because it's really you know, to the extent that we do that, we never solve the problem. We end up you know, ruining a lot of lives. So that and all right, so this is like with inner city youth. Now apply this to gays, apply this to poor communities. I mean, like apply this across the board. The Republicans use the myth of free will to target people and then to punish them.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, George. I mean, because that's the effect the free will belief has. You believe that a person, whatever consequences they suffer, whether it's the direct consequences of their actions or if it's punishment through the law, they view it as that person deserving it because they should have known better, they should have done otherwise, and they could have done otherwise. That's what the free will belief entails. If you believe that people have a free will, and so it basically eliminates any chance that people will support programs that help people who are poor or disabled or have some difference about them that is not considered socially acceptable, like the gay thing, you know. So I can see the harm that free will belief does, and so I guess the questions that I have about it is how does this play out in both the Republican and the Democrats?
Well, I mean, you've got to understand, no politician in their right mind is going to say no, we don't have a free will, you know, because that's too early. It's just like, you know, a couple of decades ago, no politician in their right mind would have admitted to smoking cannabis, you know, before Bill Clinton did, saying that he didn't inhale, and now Obama said he did inhale. So like this is an issue like that. Um, it, but you have to understand the democratic ideology is about understanding that people don't choose their circumstances. It's about understanding people don't choose to be gay, people don't choose to be poor, people don't, you know, choose to become criminals or alcoholics or drug addicts. That very unfortunate circumstances happen to them, and that we because we don't blame them, we're much more willing to help them, and that helps our society. So like, and we've just talked about the Republican. The Republican attitude is exactly the same. So you know, the Democrats and Republicans have polar, you know, positions on this, but you know, Democrats are at this point afraid to to move with this because so many people believe in free will. And so what we're doing is we're kind of like we're making it easier for the Democrats. Let's say in 5 or 10 years, you know, it could be a lot of Democrats say, no, we don't have a free will. You know, Darwin, Freud, Einstein said we don't, and that's the reality, and that's why we're going to help these people.
Yeah, well, George, you know, I read Nick Vale's post, and what he said in there is very interesting. Something about how to say that we don't have free will, it sounds anti-freedom, it sounds anti-American, you know, and so, yeah, it seems like a very unpopular thing to say, and so people are too afraid to say it, regardless of the fact that it's true.
Exactly, David. What else do you think about the campaign so far? What, you know, what do you think we should be doing? What do you think we can be doing?
Um, Yeah, it sounds good. It definitely sounds good. But I'm skeptical about how much attention it's going to receive. To be honest with you, do you think it's going to create enough of a buzz for people to really kind of get hooked into it and actually start thinking about it a lot, or is it something that people are going to read and just kind of ignore?
No, no, I think people, because basically this is such a powerful issue when you think about it. The whole conservative ideology is based on personal accountability. So, and the other part is like, we're in an extremely serious election season. Between now and November is the perfect opportunity. These opportunities don't come that often to get the word out politically. Dailykos is the site to do it in. I'm not sure there is none. There's no other Democratic progressive site comes close to the readership, to the reach. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to get like the Dailykos writers and other members of Dailykos like us to write on the theme, to continue. Like for example, somebody, let's say not in our group, might write about this, but they may not use the word free will. They may say how the Republicans blame, alcoholics for being alcoholics, how they blame, gays for being gay and stuff. And so, like, now the more that happens, the better able people are to understand that this means what they're saying is that we don't have a free will, and it's something that yeah if we work together, because I mean, like, basically we've all got to contribute. I mean, like, there's 6 or 7 of us who could be writing. I mean, like, if we do this right, we can do more in a few months than we could do, otherwise, like with these podcasts or the TV shows and all. I mean, what we're doing with this stuff is like getting the word out there, but this could amplify it many times more, because the coast, because we're kind of like making it relevant to progressives' desire to win against Republicans, and because we're making it relevant to politics in general.
Well, George, I have a few questions about Dailykos, such as what makes Dailykos more popular than the other political oriented websites?
Their reach, they have many more members, many more visits each day.
So
I mean,
it just happened that way to where they became popular, having a lot of users, a lot of articles.
absolutely, yeah. I don't think there's anything much different, from other sites, except that they were able to make it work really well.
Yeah, that's interesting because the truth is I hadn't even heard of Dailykos before. Before you brought it up, I didn't even know that the website existed.
Right, and you got to understand. So, like, our audience now isn't really the general public. Our audience is like these political wonks. These guys are like, they live politics, especially in election season. So, like, then that's the key. In other words, like, if they are our audience, they will get it, because they have, like, most people that we explain this to don't have much of an incentive to get it. They'll say, yeah, fine, we have free will, big deal. But these political, activists, wonks, whatever, they will appreciate our message, because they will see how they can use it to further their aims.
Yeah, well, that kind of it brings up the question about, really what are the aims of the Democrat Party? And like you said something earlier about that these people who are having these negative, mean comments, like that they might be Republicans. And do you think that's what happens? Like there's Republicans that troll on Daily Kos?
Oh, I would find it very difficult to imagine that that's not happening, because, like, that's a very effective way to counter good ideas that emerge on through stories. They pretend to be a Democrat, they're really not, and naive readers will say, oh, I guess, like, other progressives are kind of like, against this idea, can't be very good, when actually it's Republicans who are trying to make that impression.
Oh, I get it. So basically, they are pretending to be of one thing, whilst they secretly have an agenda to just demolish the very thing that the site's supposed to be about.
Well, yeah, to demolish good ideas. If they, they probably, scan for ideas that would help progressives and Democrats. And if they find a good one, then they'll, and you notice with the people who've been, again, they're really our best friends. They, they don't realize that, and that's fine. But I think these guys may be working in a group. They're kind of accused. We're working in a group. I mean, I think, probably it's good for us to just like, admit it and just like accept it and just, because maybe it's part of the starting a movement. But these guys, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that there's a group of them that, whenever they get an idea, they find an idea, they begin to kind of like harass the author, making allegations and stuff.
Well,
But
that
again,
makes
like,
sense, George, because that kind of thing happens in Facebook groups all the time. Like, there will be somebody, like, for example, it might be some kind of carnivore that comes into a vegan group and wants to argue with them. They usually get banned pretty quickly when that happens. Or some kind of pro-abortion person who comes in the pro-life groups, and they're just trying to cause trouble or something like that.
right. So no, again, so like again, they are doing us a huge favor because of what I explained with the comment count leading to more readership, leading to more comments, leading to more readership. It's kind of like an upward spiral. And so that's important. Like Chandler, like here's something like, all right, and your with your story, it was up for a long time. It was up, I think, throughout the entire night. Apparently, it was a good time to post because not many people were posting. So, like, you have to understand the stories will appear on the right side on the recent diaries column. You're both familiar with that, right?
Um,
I'm not. I haven't actually visited the website yet. I joined up today, but I didn't get a chance to take a look at it.
All right, David. So what happens is like, at the very top of the right, they have like the recommended diaries. Then underneath there, they might have the most shared on Facebook. Then underneath, they have this very, very long comment column of recent diaries. So like, in other words, if we were to publish one right now, it would appear at the top of that list, right? But naturally, as more people like publish more and more articles, stories, our story is going to get placed further and further down on the list. And ultimately, I don't know how many, I haven't read how many stories are in that list. It may be like 100, who knows? But ultimately, um, it will disappear from the list altogether. And so, like, so Chandler, the point I wanted to make is that our opportunity, to really get a huge readership is when the story is in that column. Once it's no longer in the column, it doesn't even like, it doesn't really make sense. It isn't worth the effort to address a lot of the comments that follow, especially the ones from the snarks that are that are kind of like trying to harass us, so like we can completely ignore them once they but like but for example, like the reason I'm mentioning this, Chandler, because like, when you post a story and you notice that it's still in the column, that's the time to, and this is something we should all be doing, just just respond to every comment on there. Even if you say, thanks for agreeing, whatever, or even if you're saying, I'm sorry, like, we just have a disagreement, just whatever, a few words, because the strategy that we're kind of like focused on is during that time window when our stories are on the recent diaries column, that is when we're going to get the readership. That's when we're going to like attract more and more attention to our mission.
yeah, I can see how that would make more sense why it would become more popular than say when I just, post something on my blog, and then it's out there, but it doesn't hardly get any views, and then once in a while someone comments and I'll get an email about it and then I'll respond. But like what I've noticed based on what you've told me, George, is like when you post something, it's right then it's popular because it's a recent story, and so you'll like spend like 4 hours sometimes like just commenting with these people while the story is hot, and that sounds very exhausting.
Well, it was, but I mean, I it's not something I want to do all the time, but imagine like there was, instead of just me doing that, imagine there were 3 or 4 of us, right? Just responding to every comment. Then you know what that does is that very quickly amplifies the number of comments, which amplifies the number of readers, which much more quickly amplifies the number of comments. So you see what I'm saying? So like if let's say we had a kind of a system to just like to notify people when we're, and ideally I think we might want to notify them a few hours in advance so they can prepare. And then so at least 2 or 3 or 4 of us are available each time one of us like posts a story to help with his comments. So yeah, in that case, instead of my having spent 4 hours, and it was worth it in a sense because the story got over 300 comments. So now like anytime anybody like types in free will as a tag and looks for the stories, if they see that our free will diaries are getting 1, 2, 300 comments each, that's huge. But that's the strategy to just increase the count by again, like if I were to do it like 4 hours, fine. But if we were again each to, let's say, spend half an hour to an hour after one of us posts a story, then that's the equivalent of probably 5, 6, 7 hours of one person doing that on their own. So.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's just so obviously different from the way I've always handled, online stuff because I've never done such a thing where I've tried to get a post on some website to have lots of views.
Which I mean, and think about it. I mean, it's so obvious. That's what we should be doing. I mean, that's the more views we get, the more attention we draw to our work, our mission. So yeah, I mean, and again, like with Dailykos, the thing is, politics we've ignored it so far. We haven't really given it the attention that it deserves. And now in this election season, just writing about free will politics and fat shaming, free will politics and the high divorce rate, whatever. I mean, there's so many political issues that we could tie this free will thing to. And again, eventually they're going to get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that would be good. And of course, I want to promote the message of no free will. And it's so frustrating though because when this sort of thing happens, when like and I know whenever I post anything, not just on Daily Coast, but anywhere on any website, it might be Facebook, Google Plus, or Twitter, the first thing that happens, there's all kinds of just negativity stuff, just people just saying the meanest things and completely misunderstanding things. And typically in the case of the free will thing, they throw out some kind of quantum randomness, or they say that, well, then nothing matters, and they think that we're promoting fatalism. So yeah, that I guess what happens is I just plain get discouraged and I don't even read comments. That's the way I usually handle it. I post what I really think, but then I don't. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and Chandler, I generally do the same thing. For example, on my blog, I don't even allow comments, because like, I don't want to deal with that. But like on Dailykos, all of a sudden it's the opposite. All of a sudden, when we get all these snarky, ignorant, abusive comments, especially at the very beginning, we'll say, yeah, this is great. Let them, keep doing it. But then like, it's very important for someone to say, like, let's say somebody says, this doesn't matter. Why is this even relevant? If we just, align after that, it's relevant because the Republicans use the myth of free will to punish people unfairly. Just something simple as that. Then again, we're doing two things. One, we're upping the comment count, which is upping the readership, and we're getting people to better understand exactly what this whole project is about.
Yeah.
So another, Chandler, what I'm saying is like in the past, while these kinds of snarky remarks would be something that would discourage us and would say, oh my God, why are they happening? It's the exact opposite on Dailykos. To the extent that they come on our site and do that, they are actually furthering our efforts. And we should be thankful that they're doing that, because I'm telling you, because it gives us the opportunity to comment, on their comments, and it gives us the opportunity to increase the comment count.
Yeah, I get it's like there's no bad publicity, it makes it more popular. I mean, it's sort of like if you've published a book, even bad reviews still spark, debate sometimes because then you've got people commenting on other people's reviews or people posting on their social media about how bad this book is. And then it's like you want to read the book to see if it's as bad as the person said. And then sometimes you find out it's really good and that person was just being a jerk.
Exactly. So, and this is very important for us to realize, because it's kind of intuitive to get frustrated by stuff like that. But to the extent that it's working in our favor, we'll feel good when it's happening, and we'll feel more motivated to post stories and to make comments. I wish more people were here on this podcast, because Trick and Mitch and Nick and whoever else is going to you know write these diaries. I think they would benefit from understanding this stuff, because I'm not sure they really have realized a lot of what this Dailykos kind of like project is about, what our strategy is there.
I would like to know how strict the website is on what you can and can't post.
Well, David, did you read that because I just sent an email that I copy and pasted their entire rule thing, and you should read it, because they are relatively strict.
Right.
If somebody like calls you a name or something, and up the ante and call them a bigger name, they don't approve of that.
Yeah, see, the thing about that is of course I don't do that anyway. I don't call people names anyway, I just try to ask them polite questions. So I'm okay with that, but yeah, and I looked at that email. In fact, I think I want to pull it up again to look at it because I mean, like I'm not so sure, like to the extent, like what if I'm not able to abide by these rules? Does that mean that I shouldn't participate or
Chandler, I don't see how you wouldn't. In other words, this rule is designed to keep people who tend to be really disruptive and rude and all out. So I don't think you have to worry about. Now, what the good thing about the rules is, for example, like you might be tempted, like Nick was, to I think he tagged his story with like 50 tags, and they tagged it, they labeled it spam. They said this is a spammer. So these are some of the technical issues we need to understand, that like if you're going to tag a story, don't tag it with more than, let's say, 5 to 10 tags,
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, I think somebody flagged my post as spam too, something like that.
Well, again, some people may do that just because they are against what you're saying, even though it's not spam. So, like, what happens is the Dailykos people who moderate these will see that, and actually, they might actually get banned, or their flagging privileges might be revoked and stuff. So, don't worry if you're not spamming. Don't worry about that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be what's happening is that they're accusing me of breaking a rule, and then I think, oh no, did I do something wrong? Or, like, and really what they're just trying to scare me off by making me think I did something wrong, even though I may not have.
Exactly. Exactly. That's their whole. That's a big part of their strategy. Yes.
Man,
So,
these people are really good at emotionally manipulating me.
so would there be any rules against us working as a group to kind of promote our message like that? Would they
I
be okay?
looked, David. I looked through the rules, and I didn't see anything about that. And so I think actually it's to our benefit. At first I thought, let's try to be kind of like a bit furtive. Let's not let on that we're a group. Now I think it might actually further us. Yes, we're a group that are working together. To expose the myth of free will. To help the world in many ways. And I hope you can join us. It'd be great if you could join our group, if we join our effort.
Well, yeah, because that's basically the same principle as like the nonprofit organization that we were talking about previously, by having it known that we're a group of people. We're not just a bunch of scattered individuals who aren't organized. I mean, I think it's good for people to know that, yeah, this is a serious business and we're a group of people who have organized.
Exactly, Chandler. when you put this up, when you have time to put this up, send the group an email and just like at the very top, just explain. Listen, for Mitch, for those guys who haven't, who are not on here, that this, I think, if they have the time, how much time have we been on here so far?
Um, let's see. Okay, it looks like we've been going for about 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Let's go for 45, and let's end this at this particular episode at 45, and then just send them an email saying it's really important for them to kind of like hear this because we're kind of like we're I'm not sure they understand some of these and ideally hopefully maybe next Sunday we can get together as a bigger group because the better we understand how Dailykos works and all, the better we'll be able to use it for this project.
Yeah, it's true. You haven't really had a time to talk with some of those guys either. Like we haven't been on Skype with Mitch for some time, for example.
Yeah, I think Mitch is getting, he's got a new job, so that might be taking some time from him. Yeah,
Yeah, plus today is Mother's Day, so I think that has a lot to do with it. I know Quaid said he'd be spending time with his mother or something like that.
exactly. Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not Mother's Day here, by the way.
Interesting. Do you guys have a Mother's Day or?
Oh yeah, we have a Mother's Day. It's in March, I believe.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I never think about things like that for some reason, like that you might have Mother's Day at a different day in a different country. But it makes sense. I mean, it's not like we're all united, even though we should be.
Well, actually, there's a period, like in daylight savings, where we have our daylight savings day, and a couple of weeks later, you guys have yours, and you got to imagine that creates some confusion with businesses that have offices both in like New York and London and all.
Yeah, definitely,
But
definitely.
Yeah.
yeah, but you know what really gets to me is the English and metric system. Like how there's two systems, and why can't the world agree on one?
There was an effort a couple of decades ago, I think, to do this in the United States, but apparently people felt it was just too expensive. We were going to move to the metric system. Yeah.
Yeah, it never happened. Well, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I can tell you're obviously excited about this Daily Coast thing, and I'm just asking you questions, trying to understand it better. And so I think that I have a better understanding that these people are trying to scare me off. That they're
When
really good at that. And
when they're, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and it seems that like it's not bad publicity because that ups the comments, and that so in a way it means that you're heard more when you do get those kind of weird people who comment like that.
Exactly, exactly. They're like our best friends. They don't realize it, and that's fine. They're kind of like actually working against what they're trying to do. But that if it works to our favor, let them continue doing it.
Well, yeah,
One,
yeah, I get what you're saying exactly because like I can compare it to other issues, like how this will happen in the case of like creationists who make these videos trying to refute evolution and say something like, well, evolution is false because the banana fits the shape of the human hand, or some creationists will get on YouTube and say the Grand Canyon was formed in 5 minutes during the global flood in Genesis chapter 6, and then they say these things, and then those are so funny and so hilarious that they get spread all throughout the internet and it really just backfires.
Exactly, exactly. This one guy, you know, he said, I'm going to write a piece and I'm going to publish over the weekend and I'm going to show you guys how wrong it is. Now, I found out about it late last night when I came home from Manhattan, and apparently he'd published it at 1 p.m. Um, what, what's the Pacific time? Like, I guess he's in California or something. So I haven't even read it yet. But yes, one, he's doing us a favor by publishing on the issue, and two, he probably has these nonsensical explanations that definitely work in our favor.
Oh yeah, and what's particularly interesting, George, is now this is true with the free will thing. It's true with evolution. It's true with climate change. I mean, you can't truly refute something unless, I mean, first of all, really disprove or refute something, it has to be false anyway. But second of all, a lot of people, they try to say why a position is wrong, why some belief or some theory is wrong, when they don't fully understand it. Just like with the case of quantum indeterminism, how they actually think that proving determinism false would actually grant free will. That shows how,
Exactly.
yeah, it shows how little they actually know.
Yeah, and we'll get that a lot, right? So whenever we get that, we just like say, well, trying to disprove determinism makes matters worse for free will because, like, if events are uncaused, they can't be freely willed either. I mean, they give us an opportunity to just very concisely explain things, about why free will is completely impossible.
Yes, in fact, yesterday night, George, Quaid and WSD and I, that was what we talked about. That was the main theme, was about how, both determinism and indeterminism are incompatible with free will. We talked about what compatibilists do, how they redefine things. So yeah, I think that's a very important thing. And
Right.
yeah, and another example, George, is people only bring up quantum physics as soon as somebody brings up free will. Have you noticed that? Like, it's not like people talk about quantum physics like they do the weather or what sports team is winning. But as soon as someone mentions free will, then they send them a link to Michio Kaku's video.
Right. And all right. So for example, let's say we get a and again, our strategy. One of the things we're trying to do is up the comment count, right? So rather like we get like somebody says, well, you guys don't know anything about quantum mechanics, right? And then our response to that may not be to explain to them why quantum mechanics isn't free will, but to kind of like put it back on them. How do you think quantum mechanics makes free will possible, right? To extend this dialogue, extend the comment count.
Oh,
But you're
that's
right.
a strategy, George, because here's the deal. Like, a lot of what happens when someone does that is I feel like, well, yeah, they're right. I don't understand quantum mechanics, and so then I don't say anything about the issue because they basically silenced me, because and it's yeah, that's the trouble. But instead, if we ask them questions about how does quantum mechanics or indeterminism, how does that grant free will, and then get them to be the one intimidated, like
There you
they
go.
can't
There you
answer
go.
that question.
David, like I hope you're planning to post a diary soon. Have you thought of what theme you might address, you might present?
I haven't yet. What I wanted to ask you was, what's the time limit on this campaign that we're doing?
I mean, if we're getting good results, if we're getting like hundreds of comments on our things, I mean, now through November. Now, having said that, in June, I believe, in early June, the Republicans have their convention. In late June, the Democrats do. Now, so like during those several weeks, attention will really focus on the conventions, so we may or may not get that much activity then. So we've gotten between now and then after the conventions, between um again, like we don't have a good a chance of presenting this when people are really interested in, for example, like the primaries or something else. So we have to wait for these lulls. So the next lull in the political activity will be after the conventions, between the conventions and Labor Day, which is like the first week in September. But basically we want to do this through election day, and we might even want to like go a few months later in order to then like describe how Clinton, and the new Democrats can use this unfree will perspective to, they've won the election now to implement their policies to win the issue debates. So yeah, David, so like explain to me like then your understanding of how it relates to politics. What because I'm hoping that as you do that, ideas will come to you in terms of like how you can address it, what angle you want to use on this.
Well, I was just going to lurk around the site for a couple of days and just kind of learn the layout and, perhaps make a few comments and then lead up to making a post, basically.
All right, that sounds good. And so another thing is like, a perfectly valid post can be 2-3 paragraphs, period. And sometimes I think we should be working for that, because like when we work for that, it takes us much less time. I think my posts have been way too long, really. To the extent we make them short and brief, we do two things. We focus the conversation, and it makes us. I think we're limited to one post a day, right? So to the extent we make them short, what we might otherwise have included in one post, we can like include in 3 or 4 or 5 posts. So
Right.
yeah, and hopefully these guys will just, because like we're exploring this now, but we really we want to understand what we're doing. This is such a powerful strategy that when Trick and Mitch and hopefully maybe Mike Walsh will join us and a few other people, Quaid, of course, then we can get this really, really moving. Because one thing I want to try to work out is that we'll each commit to writing, for example, one story a week. Not that we can if we want to write more, but let's say we each assign ourselves a day of the week, right? That way we're ensuring that the issue is up there every day of the week, and all it's taking from us is, let's say, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs a week. I mean, that it's so easy for us to do. And I think it could have so much reach. And we might even want to get organized. For example, like, you remember I was saying that we should alert people when we're going to like post a story. Well, if we, let's say, all agree to post our stories at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, that would be 7 Western. And actually, David, that might be a bit difficult for you, because that would be like, God, 1 o'clock in the morning in England. Yeah, no, maybe we'll figure that out. We might want to have 2 posting times. One, let's say at 8 Eastern, and the other might be at 3 Eastern, which would be 8 o'clock, your time. So again, because that way, and we should be kind of like really accurate in this, like to really 8 o'clock comes posted right on that 8, so then people just know, and then naturally we want to send out the email anyhow just as a backup. But if we just like systematize this and just make this a regular thing, 8 o'clock comes around, and we go on there, and it might be something that we might get 5 or 6 or 7 of us commenting on the same piece. I mean, it might really, really help to make this, a routine that we do.
Yeah, I like the idea of that. That's a good idea.
Thanks. Okay, Chandler, how are we on time?
Around 43 minutes.
All right, so yeah, let's not make this too long, because like, and if you can send an email to everyone, and even in the email, if you can like, if you want to summarize the basic points that in terms of the advice, I mean, that might help, but you don't have to do that. But just ask them to listen to this if they want, and that it's important that hopefully next Sunday we'll just go over this again, because this it's all so new to us that I want to hear Trick's suggestions and Mitch's and Nick's, and also we've still got a lot more to talk about. Yep.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan, George. So, did you want me to end this episode now?
Yeah, I think we've done enough. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you've been listening to Free Will, Science, and Religion with Chandler Klebs, George Ortega, and David Joseph, and hopefully we'll have a bigger group next time. But this has been George explaining what the idea of Dailykos is. Of course, well, you know what it is. You just listen to it. But yeah, hopefully this will go big, and that this will be a good way to get more people to see why having no free will matters in our politics, just as it does in every other area of life. So, hope you learned something and enjoyed. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.